members of the Republican side. They've got 6 on the Democratic side.
So you have kind of hearing table also like this. Who's you invite to the meeting?
Nah, di kita selama ini belum pernah melaksanakan amanat dari konstitusi.
Out of the meeting with the parliament. So sometimes those ministers, okay, he said in the parliament, it's okay. And then after coming back to their office, they don't do that.
Because in our system, if the president feels that this is emergency, there's no need to go to the parliament and just making the decree. And the level of the decree is just like the law.
Because we will control them. These executives become larger and larger. The government of Indonesia extend themselves, their capacity, into a very rural and local.
Established democracy like France, like the US. And that's why we came and gather all the political party which exists in the parliament. And we also some staff that also coming with us today, including those who support us with the idea of comparing those best practice of the parliament all over the world. So thank you for having us. But if I may explain some of the overview of the plan that we have. We basically plan to reform the parliament into 3 steps. Number 1 is to have a good law in the parliament. So we will be making 6 bills. First of all, the 4 bill that this is very old bill. Every time when we started to form a parliament after the election, we bring this bill before 4 institutions consist in one law: the assembly, the house, the regional representative, like Senate here, but it's not fully mandated as the Senate, and the local parliamentarian. Membahas bab DPR, di bawahnya disebutkan bahwa ketentuan tentang DPR diatur berdasarkan undang-undang tersendiri. Nah, di kita selama ini belum pernah melaksanakan amanat dari konstitusi. Jadi ini makanya kita mau pisah. Nah, jadi khusus nanti ini disebutnya paket undang-undang politik legislatif. Nah, ada 2 lagi tambahan. Kalau nanti politik ini diperkuat, maka salah satu cara memperkuatnya adalah membangun kelembagaan yang lebih independen. Maka kita membuat rancangan undang-undang tentang lembaga legislatif. Nah, rancangan ini nanti itu seperti konsep, kalau di Amerika ini kayak Capitol begitu. Capitol itu kan kawasannya khusus, kemandiriannya juga khusus, ya kan, bahkan polisinya khusus, aturan dan sebagainya itu seperti negara dalam negara kan. Tetapi kalau kita mau merdekakan seperti itu, harus ada undang-undang yang ke-6, yaitu undang-undang peradilan etika lembaga perwakilan. Sehingga nanti semua anggota legislatif itu punya peradilan tersendiri yang ketat, ya, yang mengatur kebebasan yang diberikan kepada mereka.
We want also to cut the relation between member of the parliament and their political party. Because if you are given, your political party, given 1 minister, for example, in the cabinet, so this chairman of the party came to the parliament and said to their, fraction and said, stop criticizing the government because we are given 1 minister in the cabinet, This has happened in Indonesia, and probably you don't know. We want to stop this, because this is, bringing frustration among the member of the parliament also. The second one is about the institution. The most important development now that we have, we want to strengthen the supporting system. We want to have library like the Library of Congress, CRS or something like that. So everyone or every staff will be having, or coming from the brightest, and we paid them more, more than what the executive can pay, because we will control them. These executives become larger and larger. The government of Indonesia extend themselves, their capacity, into a very rural and local, power. And then the last one is the capacity building among the member and also the staff. Last one is the law for the bill for the ethics court, of the legislative. So we will give independence to the legislative body, but we also want them to have a very strong ethic court. So we basically want to separate what is happening now, because all the members of the parliament can be directly punished by the regular judicial or criminal justice system. We want to take them into one independent body, which is this Court of Ethics. So that is the idea behind this reform, because what we see now, our executive body is become stronger and stronger, following the capacity of our national budget, the amount of this executive body, which is from time to time developed. But at the other side, the legislative body seems like become weaker. So the capacity to control the big government is very, very low. So this is the idea. Result of the meeting with the parliament. So sometimes those ministers, okay, he said in the parliament, it's okay. And then after coming back to their office, they don't do that. This is we want to. I already said before you're coming. We have 3 steps of reform that we want to do now. First of all, we want to reform our law of the parliament.
Right.
So to make it very strong, like what you have in the old and established democracy, like in France and the US.
Sure.
Second one is to build our independent system. So this organization can be run without intervention from the government, because now all of the budget coming from the executive.
Right.
Sometimes the Ministry of Finance,
Which is the key, obviously.
Yeah.
Who controls the money? That's
Yeah,
the key
yeah.
to who controls the
Yeah,
power.
yeah, yeah.
Right.
so sometimes the Ministry of Finance write a small letter to the Parliament. We reduce your budget this year 10%, for example.
Oh, see, that in our system, the president, by tradition, they never challenge each other's budget.
Yeah.
It's a long-standing tradition. You're right.
Yeah. They don't challenge, basically. They just sign one letter,
Right.
one paper only.
paper.
You can imagine what you'd hear here.
Yeah. So this is what we want to strengthen.
Yeah, I think that makes less sense. The key thing is not so much power as checks and balances.
Stronger parliament, because 20 years ago, 21 years ago, we inherited the totalitarian type of leadership, where the parliament is not made to oppose the government, but to follow what is the mean of the executive. And now, after we have 4-time constitutional amendment, we strengthen the parliament, and then we want to go through the legislative or legal reform, and then institutional reform, and also how to train and develop our human resources within the parliament. So I, as a member of this committee, consists of 10 political parties. So after that, there is no discipline in making the land, the city planning, and something like that. Then many things change. We basically want to have a law
to state that it's very special.
Yes,
So especially for the parliament.
yes, that would make
Yeah.
sense, yeah.
But we are a member of what we call as a team for the reform of the parliament. You know, we got our democracy just 21 years ago when we started to amend our constitution. The constitution that has been ruled our country for more than 60 years, since our independence in 1945. And we get 4 times amendment, and we want to make sure that the standard in our constitution, just like what you have in the federal paper, so system, it is the executive control the money, the Ministry of Finance control everything, and in our constitution said it is only the right of the executive to propose budget to the House. So there is no right for the House to have the alternative budget. And as far as I understand, the different case in the US system, it is the Congress who control the budget, and then executive came line by line to ask for money from the first right of the budget house.
Yeah.
And then you give them, you agree upon one by one, So is it, it's very strong power that you have, so you can control everything here? And how you control, because mostly we're talking about budget, we're talking about details thing. So how you can come up with a proposal which is very detailed, so you still have power, because the bureaucracy of legislative is not as big as bureaucracy of the executive.
And that is a good, fair point. So the way it works is the executive branch works to develop what's called the president's budget.
So for me, this was neat because now I get to change the things I didn't like about the House operations.
The same with our
How
Vice
long
Speaker.
from start to be a member? How long?
I worked for another member of Congress for 16 years. 6 members of the Republican side, and I've got 6 on the Democratic side.
So you have kind of hearing table also like that. Who's you invite to the meeting mostly?
It depends. If we have a hearing, the hearing will be, the witnesses we have. Sometimes it's the officers of the House, our chief administrative officer, our clerk, and also the sergeant at arms. And then we'll invite our inspector general.
Oh, so you really control the process internally.
Well, we try to have an oversight control. There's a lot less, what used to happen years before I started working, it was more patronage, and it was run by the committee, and a lot of members got in trouble. That's when the House banking scandal took place, and some others. So in 1995, when Republicans took over for the first time in 50 plus years, they implemented a chief administrative officer that's appointed by the majority, but they're there to run the functions of the Office of Finance. Architect of the Capitol is there to run, how do you run House operations? How do you take care of all the campuses? Sergeant at Arms and Capitol Police, how do they function with?
But we compare yesterday, the budget of the CRS is 125 million US dollar. I think Mr. In writing less than $2 million, I think.
15 million
And
rupiah. 15 million rupiah.
15 million, a billion rupiah.
Billion,
Yeah. So, and then the second one is the researcher in the CRS, they have like 600, and we probably only have 70 researchers. So the size of the country is quite the same. We have 200 and probably 70 million people, 17,000 island, 515 local government, 34 province. I think it's big country, but the less control. That's why we've been experiencing corruption everywhere because of the control is very weak. So thank you again, and then I will let everybody
asking emergency item. So because in our system, if the president feels that this is emergency, there's no need to go to the parliament and just making the decree. And the level of the decree is just like the law.
Right, so,
The Congress control the budget in our system because the executive control the budget. We basically don't know how much is the budget and where they put the budget. So the government can, I don't know, they can do it, they can spend money because they're holding all the keys, the account. So in the system, because the Congress now hold the budget, who basically that has the power to say yes or no to the budget that will be spent by the government?
the actual keys are treasured.
Right, but the president can still veto the budget also. So there has to be agreement at some point in time amongst the House, the Senate, and the executive branch in order for it to get passed.
But the actual disbursements are made by the Department of Treasury, which is an executive branch agency. Even for disbursements on behalf of the legislative branch.
Which is very active in, tweeting on, speak something. How is the response of the Congress to what, everything dynamic that the president has, but because as far as I understand, it's rarely you have this kind of active president, especially in making issues and new policies, that sometimes shocking the market, the people. So is there any kind of specific, adjustment made by the Congress on this kind of leadership?
It's also the function of responding to the needs of the constituents who are having challenges perhaps with Social Security payments and something not working right in an agency. The third area is oversight. The legislature does have the authority, and it's implied in the Constitution, supported by court decisions, to conduct oversight into activities of the executive branch. And that's been ongoing for a long, long time.
Without this legal counsel. And this is the only body within the government, the whole government, that hold that function.
So we will draft in accordance with the Constitution unless the member tells us not to.
Okay. The individual, let's say Mr. Gazuli's law, for example, the law regarding something. We in Indonesia, we have that kind of right according to our law, but it is very difficult to manage to become, from one individual ideas and thought, it to become a, law that will become the consensus of the parliament and the president.
Their own resources properly with respect to what they're doing. It's really if they're taking some kind of official action to benefit themselves personally. So we keep a close eye on the types of official activities that they're doing and seeing if there's some kind of improper connection to one of their personal interests.
So you don't really concern on the existing amount of money or asset they have?
It will depend on cases. We certainly can.
Because in our
access
system,
state records,
in the beginning of your function as a member, you disclose your asset publicly, and then after that, after 5 years, they also disclose, and the media write, after become 5 years, become member of parliament, his asset increased by billion rupiah, something like that.